next week has a terrific story that adds significantly to a growing body of evidence on the Pakistan problem. CNN has special early access to it. One of the authors of the Atlantic piece, Jeffrey Goldberg, joins me now. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's cut to the chase. The most interesting part of this piece is this conversation that you report between the head of the Pakistani army and the head of the unit that is basically in charge of nuclear weapons.
Right. What happened after Abbottabad? The Osama bin Laden raid occurs. The Pakistani army is shocked that U.S. raiders can come in, kill someone in a garrison town, in an army garrison town, leave without the Pakistani military even knowing. So after this, the Pakistani military gets very, very worried about American access to Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And of course, as you know, Pakistan treasures its nuclear weapons more than any other aspect of its arsenal, certainly. And
it would be fair for them to think, as you point out, that there might be an American plan, a kind of a plan deep in the Pentagon, that in a worst-case scenario, if something terrible happened in Pakistan, we would find a way of going in and securing the nuclear weapons.
There are plans. In fact, it's a very, very high priority for American planners. We'd rather have those nuclear weapons not fall into the hands of jihadists if the Pakistani state disintegrates, if the Taliban somehow gets closer to some of these bases. So what happened was this: the SPD, this Pakistani army branch, gets a call from General Kiani, who's the most powerful figure in the country, the chief of army staff, and basically says, now, do we know for sure that these weapons are secure? Not from jihadists, which is what the world worries about, but from America.
And so what does General Kidwai, the head of this nuclear unit, what does he do in response to Kiani's concerns?
Well, this is very interesting. What happens is that the nuclear program is already dispersed around the country. There are 12 or 15 different sites where you could plausibly believe that their nuclear weapons are stored, or components of nuclear weapons are stored. One of the Pakistani doctrines to keep these weapons safe and away from prying eyes, not only America's but India's, is to move them around the country. Sometimes they're moved by helicopter, but often they're moved by road. And what happened after Abbottabad was the pace of this movement increased. In other words, they accelerated the velocity of this shell game, if you will. And here's the really troubling aspect of this. There are two ways you can do this, obviously. You can have huge armored convoys that are driven at night, well protected, moving weapons and components, but of course that draws attention, not only the attention of jihadists or whoever might be interested, but spy satellites and etc. So what happens is very often these warheads and fissile material are moved around in the equivalent of delivery vans over
UPS trucks, basically.
You wish. I mean, UPS would probably do a fairly good job of it. It's an open question about how good a job is being done. Now, obviously, if the intelligence is good, if they have good operational security on the movement of these trucks, let's put aside the issue of how dangerous Pakistani roads are on a daily basis, but put that aside. If they have good operational security, then no one knows where these trucks are going at any given moment. But because we know that the Pakistani military has been infiltrated to some degree by people who are sympathetic to organizations like the Taliban, that's a whole other level of worry.
You mention in the article very specifically that the weapons in these unsecure or insecure convoys, perhaps one truck moving around, were both unmated and mated.
Yeah.
This struck me as very, very worrying. Explain what the difference is.
Right. Well, demated weapons are weapons in which the warhead is in one place, its fissile core is in another, the delivery system is in another place entirely. So if you're plotting to go steal a nuclear weapon, well, you're going to have a much harder time when they're separate. And so we got reports that sometimes these weapons are actually the smaller tactical sized weapons that are mated permanently. The way they're designed is such that it's not possible to demate them. And so you could have a complete nuclear weapon being driven around the streets of Pindi or Lahore or somewhere down in Karachi where that naval base that was attacked not long ago. And that's it's another level of worry, and I know that people in the United States government are obviously very worried about that level of security.
You also point out, and this is somewhat public knowledge, though you flesh out some of the details, there have been attacks on 6 different bases in Pakistan that are considered to be, or rumored to have nuclear weapons on them, correct?
There have been several attacks over the past 5 or 6 or 7 years. The attack that to me is the most interesting was the attack that came a few weeks after the Abbottabad raid. It was an attack on this naval base outside, naval air base outside Karachi, which some people believe might be a place that you would have nuclear weapons ready for delivery in case of a war between Pakistan and India. They managed. It's not only the fact that these guys penetrated the base, it's that they stayed on the base for, I think, 16 or 18 hours before they were neutralized. And they had a very specific target. They were going for these P-3 Orion spy planes. They blew up 2 of them. They had a very good idea of what they should be attacking, what they should be destroying, and they succeeded. This, of course, in Pakistan, where I did this reporting, it's widely assumed among people who are trying to deal honestly with the subject that these Taliban figures who broke into the base had inside help. They wouldn't have known where to go otherwise. It's a large base. And so you have multiple situations where, over the last years, where these bases have been attacked. Sometimes the attacks have been successfully repelled. Sometimes it's not been quite so instantaneously successful.
Jeffrey Goldberg.